I'm going to go down to the jungle because, I'm going to drink this tea that I'm going to puke and probably crap my pants and lose my mind. And I think it's going to be really good for me. And I went there and literally in the first night, had a death experience. The floodgates open and I was just wailing like a 5-year-old. I realized I can't problem solve this. This is a problem in my heart and I can't solve it with my mind. And every single time you do it could be a different experience. So to tell someone what it's going to be like is hard.
Welcome back to the Tim Teaches podcast. I'm your host, Tim McCoy. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Gio, founder of Elemental Rhythm. Gio also facilitates at RHYTHMIA Life Advancement Center, where he blends deep spiritual insight with grounded tools for healing and awakening. I'm excited to hear about your journey, how you got into breath work and Rythmia.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here. Every time someone asks me, hey, where do I start today? I guess I'll just give a bit of the backstory, who I am. I grew up just in the suburbs north of Toronto, in a very, I don't know what the right word is, very, I wouldn't say closed-minded, but very, let's just say it was 90% Italian, Roman Catholic. So everyone kind of thought the same, dressed the same, did the same things, very, a lot of good values that come from the importance of family and religion, but also, a lot of people that thought outside the box as far as new ideas and stuff like that. And so, my dad was second generation immigrant. So my grandparents came from Italy. My dad was actually born there. And what I was taught growing up was that in order to be happy and successful, that you had to make money. That was kind of it. So net worth and self-worth was equal. And, I was a pretty smart kid growing up and did well in school and was going down this path of, wanting to be somebody, I guess. And, I got into a business school and, very shortly after that, my dad wanted me to become a chartered accountant, which was not exciting at all. But I guess, he was an accountant, not a chartered accountant. And then I remember buying my Canadian tax law textbook, which was a cinder block in my backpack. I just remember this feeling of this is not for me. And I was walking through the parking lot, mid-semester, middle of January, back to my car. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I turned around. I knew that every day that I wasted to return it, I would lose money back. You get 10% after one day. And
oh man.
So I got the full refund within 1 hour of buying it. And, I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was already kind of entrepreneurial. I had started a few businesses in high school, just, simple things, always trying to hustle, make a few extra bucks. And there I was switched all my majors to marketing and entrepreneurship, and away we went. And over the next, 5 or 10 years, I'd say from there, it was any kind of business would do. Can I make money doing this? This is a good idea. And I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. Made money, lost money, the shtick with entrepreneurship when you're trying to figure it out. And I had a lot of energy there. So I was really would push myself to try to be something. And finally, probably about 10 years into this entrepreneurship journey where I had, construction companies in the food business, food manufacturing, did sales, sold insurance at one point. It's all over the map. I started making a little bit of money. It's funny. I realized it's not too long ago. At one point, I can say with pretty good certainty, I was probably a top cannoli salesman for imported cannoli in North America.
Wow.
Which is kind of funny to me now. Although it's also very meaningless, but it's an accolade. It's yeah, let's check that off. And I had this realization, I was starting to focus on my health and started eating a little bit differently. And one day, I guess, I was sitting at the edge of my bed. I kind of had this vision, I guess, what I would, then it was kind of this weird daydream, but something was speaking to me. And in this voice that wasn't my usual self-talk voice, sitting there, I looked at my hands and I had this vision of these old wrinkly hands like my grandfather's. And the voice was yeah, you're pretty clever. You figured out how to live a pretty comfortable life. I was making a little bit of money. I bought a house, got married, had a mortgage, going on vacation a year, driving an okay car to my standards. I bought a used BMW not too long around that time, And I realized you're going to wake up, do the same thing for the next 20, 30, 40 years and wake up at the edge of the same bed and look back at your life and who cares? What's the point? not that I didn't have a good life, and, like being a great dad and a husband is, a great part of life. But, what was I actually here to do? Like what was I intended to do? I didn't feel like it was this. I didn't know what it was, but I realized in that moment that what I felt was emptiness and unfulfillment and lack of purpose, I guess, for lack of better words. And once I realized that, I couldn't unrealize it. It was like something shifted inside of me, and then everything I was doing, I just was like getting to more arguments at work and not wanting to be there and not really knowing what to do. And so, I did what anyone would do, is go on Google and type in, what's the meaning of life? What am I doing here? Like expecting it to give me some answer. Like, here you go. This is what you're supposed to do. And maybe if ChatGPT was around there, it might give me a little bit better directions than Google at the time. But what it did lead me on to was like a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of, just searching, started watching like Alan Watts and, different philosophies, and just trying to like think outside the box of what the bubble I like kind of grew up in. And it very quickly led me to ayahuasca. I remember in an Alan Watts video, someone said something along the lines of, if Alan Watts, you find Alan Watts interesting, Terence McKenna will blow your mind. It's like, oh, who's this guy? I never heard him before. Let me check him out, thinking he's probably some other Buddhist philosopher, which he was a philosopher in his own right, poet, just like a really interesting guy. And the way he spoke about psychedelics, like something sparked within me, this curiosity that I knew in my heart intuitively, like, you need to explore this. And I, in high school, eating mushrooms and smoking weed and, drinking a few beers was very common. So I didn't really associate the two together. But after listening to a few or watching a few videos, like, super interested. And then from there, like the synchronicities, like I was hearing about it everywhere. This is probably back in 2012. No one I knew had ever heard of this stuff before. And it was kind of like telling my wife, like, hey, I'm going to go down to the jungle because, I'm going to drink this tea that I'm going to puke and probably crap my pants and lose my mind. And I think it's going to be really good for me. And she looks at me like, have you completely lost your mind? Like, I'm a pretty out there person, do crazy things my whole life, but this was like a whole new territory. And for a lot of negotiation, my sales skills came in pretty handy at that point where, I was able to negotiate a fair agreement to go there for 2 weeks. And I went there, and literally in the first night, like, had a death experience, like ego death, like Mr. Smarty Pants who thinks he's got it all figured out, realized in like a couple hours, I knew nothing about anything, like humbled me to my knees. And it was probably one of the best nights of my life, although it was scary and hard. It was kind of like this reset button that I needed to kind of open my eyes. And I finished the 2 weeks, did 3 more ceremonies, a lot of amazing experiences, mind blown for sure. And I knew when I came back, I had to find some new friends. I had to like really just like, there's so much that I didn't know about that I didn't even know yet. And I was like, okay, like I need to break out of this bubble and learn. And I did that. And I started meeting people who not necessarily were into plant medicine, but just thought differently, dressed differently, just were like different. And I was trying to just be a student and understand, what other people thought, and open my eyes to a lot of different things. And pretty quickly after that, I found a bunch of guys that had a website that was into all this kind of stuff, like transformation, spirituality, a lot of conspiracy stuff too. And, I was just like eating it all up, and I volunteered for them. Like, hey, can I do a podcast for you guys? They didn't have a podcast. And really, I just wanted to interview some of these interesting people that I wanted to talk to. And basically, in the span of a year or two, I made a documentary on plant medicine, because every single person that I thought I found this holy grail that I tried to speak to looked at me the same way my wife did, like, you're completely crazy. And then I have to talk about the science and the history. And like, I had all these arguments. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put this in a documentary. I've never done anything like this before. I'm going to film it, give it to people. If they want to talk to me after they watch that, then they can. And I also started a podcast, which I met some of these guys that I ended up interviewing. And I ended up connecting with Wim Hof before he was like super famous, and we had pretty decent traffic. And I'm like, hey, you want to come on this podcast? And he said yes, and we had an amazing chat about life, about all kinds of things. And he's like, you got to come do this training. Our first one we're doing in the US. I'm like, all right, I'm in. Knew nothing about breathwork, really. I tried breathwork once, actually, at that plant medicine retreat I went to the first time. And when everyone's doing breathwork and freaking out and crying and screaming, I'm just like, are they faking it? Are they pretending? Like I didn't feel anything. I was like, am I doing this wrong? I couldn't get into it. And I said, okay, I'll try it out. And I went there, maybe done a couple cold showers before this experience, and just was like thrown into, probably about a week of just like awesome adventures. I met, like, I remember sitting there with about 30 to 40 people, all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, ages, professions. And the opening circle, people are sharing one by one about how breathwork, nature, mindfulness, cold exposure completely transformed their life. And these things are all free, available to everyone. And they're talking about addiction, chronic pain, insomnia, infertility, diseases, anxiety, depression. Like, and each person's talking about this story of transformation. Something was like clicking inside of me. It's like, wow, there's something really powerful here that I probably took for granted, not really preparing myself for this experience as much as I probably should have. And, when they got to me, I was kind of like, I don't really know why I'm here. I thought it'd be cool to take a picture with Wim, maybe get some Instagram followers. At the time I was trying to like build an Instagram following. Like, I'm just here to experience and, figure it out, I guess. And we did the whole week and did all the stuff, climbed the mountains, jumped in the frozen lakes and all the crazy fun stuff. And then the last day or the second last day, he led us on this deeper breathing experience. He's playing the drum, he's chanting. And by then I was like, okay, I'm all in. I trust this guy. Whatever he tells me to do, I'm going to do it, And as I'm breathing, slowly I start to feel something in my body. I'm like, okay, it's working. Last time it didn't work, but this time something's working. And kept going, leaning in a little bit more. And all of a sudden I feel this vibration like moving through my body, like a jet engine's about to like take off or something like that. And all of a sudden I'm like, having an out-of-body experience. I'm floating around the top of this like log cabin, like 20 feet up in the air. I'm looking down and I realize, okay, I'm in the space that I was in, but what am I doing up here? And then I see myself and I'm like, oh shit, am I dead? Like, is this it? Did something happen? Like, did I die? And the fear kind of, I guess, snapped me back into my body, which I wish I would have had the ability to breathe and maybe like float through the roof and go like on some like, out of body journey. Like I used to read about in the Monroe Institute type stuff, like remote viewing and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, didn't happen. Came back, opened my eyes, and I felt like I was reborn. Like I felt like it was the first breath I'd taken, like as a baby or something like that. And I remember feeling this like strong well of emotions. And the thought in my mind was, Gio, do not cry. There's a lot of competitive dudes here. Like, don't be that guy. And before I could even finish the thought, like the floodgates open. And I was just like wailing like a 5-year-old. And it felt so good. And I didn't care what anyone thought. And as I'm crying, like I'm in this really interesting headspace where this nurturing voice is like talking to me. It's like, hey, Gio, like you're doing a great job. Keep exploring. Don't be so hard on yourself. Like all the things that I guess I needed to hear that I wouldn't give myself credit for because it was like about like, performance and success and all that stuff. And it was like such a beautiful experience that stuck with me. And, even the next day I kept thinking about like, what exactly just happened there? Like, what was that? And I came back to Toronto, on a mission to learn more about breathwork. And back then, there wasn't a lot of breathwork around like there is today. I still think there should be more around, but I would like venture off into like the hippie neighborhoods and try to find someone that can teach me holotropic breathwork or, anything at all, pranayama and yoga, which was like I was trying to learn. And eventually started just working with breathwork myself, some of the things I learned from Wim Hof methods, some of these other methods. And there's this interesting state that when you do breath work, you can get into, which is like this flow state. I think they call it transient hypofrontality. And I would get all these creative downloads as I'm breathing, and once I started syncing my breathing to the rhythm of the music, it unlocked something for me. Because this like, although I've never been diagnosed, I think like ADHD mind that, can't really stay focused unless it's like dialed into something. And then I can go super deep. It was like, focusing on the music that I liked was like helping me to breathe and go deeper. And, while I was with that website, we had the opportunity to go down to see the Institute of Heart Math near San Francisco and learn about heart coherence and some of these powerful meditations that they change your state. And so I started integrating some of the things I learned there and just kind of created this method for myself, which was helping me to get back to those places. And around, that same time, this entrepreneur who's having this like post ayahuasca, like, what am I doing with my life? I was like, okay, I'm going to open a wellness business, like something that's meaningful. And I decided to open this wellness studio, which I have no experience in like like anything to do with any of this stuff. I just met a few people going to float tanks, and like they told me, oh, this is a great business, which they lied. Well, they all closed down within the next couple of years. I think they're just, trying to convince themselves. But anyways, float tanks, saunas, meditation room, ice baths. We started doing all the stuff, and
It's wonderful.
it really challenged me, because entrepreneurship is definitely like a spiritual battlefield, challenging you in many ways. And I saw that pretty quickly, my fear of failure and judgment. And so went over budget, opened it up, learning this new method. And I started just saying, okay, like, where the guinea pigs want to try this breath work. And, right away I saw they were having these beautiful experiences like I was. And so as we're trying to like create this business, that's not doing well. It's in this area that's probably way too soon for the area that I was in.
Yeah.
This breathwork thing is happening. This community is forming. These people having these experiences, connecting, and over the next couple of years, like a real beautiful community formed there. Until COVID happened, and then everything shuts down. And I'm like, okay, God, what is the lesson here? What's going on right now? And what was happening also at that time was people were asking me if I could teach them to do this. And I never was not a teacher, never saw myself as a teacher, didn't know if I could do it. I always had an excuse. I'm busy, I don't have time, like I have to figure out how to do this. And now there's no excuses. So I'm like, okay, guys, let's do it. So got them all together, sat in a room, dumped everything in my brain into a makeshift manual. And we did this first training, and it was a lot of fun. And, when we're done after a couple of days, okay, go practice with your friends and family and come back and we'll share. And the one thing that I started realizing through all of these breathwork experiences was when I was sharing breathwork and helping people, even at the studio, when I realized, okay, this thing might fail and it might be the laughing stock, I realized that when I really focused on it, like who would I care to actually judge me? There wasn't anyone I could pinpoint. And I knew that the people who loved me and supported me would support me in anyways, even if I had to go back and move in with my parents again, which was like a big fear. But what I realized was when I was helping people, I felt something I never felt in business. It was this fulfillment that any deal I got, it wouldn't feel the same as that. It'd be exciting. I might get a dopamine hit, but the next day I was like, hey, what's next? Mm-hmm. And when I was helping people, it was a different feeling. And so when I shared with these other people how to facilitate, they came back and shared these beautiful stories of connecting with their parents, connecting with their dad, like they'd never been able to be emotional or share things. After the breath work, they just cried and embraced each other. And then I felt this feeling of fulfillment for not even being there. Like I was able to share something with someone else that created this ripple effect. And that's when I knew light bulb went off. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Figure out how to do it. And the left brain's like, can I do a business? Can I support myself? And the heart's like, hey, like, don't even think about that. Like just focus on your heart, which was, the initial realization I had when I realized I was unfulfilled. I realized I can't problem solve this. This is a problem in my heart, and I can't solve it with my mind. And that's when I went on that exploration stage, which led me to where I am now. And to make a long story short, after that, we ended up, just expanding the training. It was organic. Like the next one filled up, the next one filled up. It was something that was like weird to me because I wasn't like worried about how do I market this? How do I get people? It's like when you created a beautiful experience with intention, like that ripples out and kind of like attracts more. And a lot of these principles that I've been reading about in books, I could see it happening in real time, like this value of connection and the energy, the vibration, the manifestation, synchronicity, all these things are happening. The more I put myself in that kind of vibration, the more I was working on myself. And, a lot of plant medicine, because around that same time also I got invited to go to Rythmia and also to guest speak there eventually and become friends with Jerry. And so like I'm working on myself at Rythmia, bringing the insights back, applying them. And, we now have over 500 facilitators around the world. I also co-founded another business in that time. And it was like the wellness center was like this like pressure cooker for me, where it was like, it wasn't that business that was supposed to take off. I had to learn a lot about myself, but I met amazing people there that now all these things sprouted out of it in beautiful ways. And so Elemental Rhythm was born, personal development school kind of was born out of there too with my partner, Thais. And, 7 years later, I ended up choosing to close it down, when I was at the verge of this crossroads of like, what am I doing with this place? I spent a couple of years in Costa Rica during COVID and put a manager in place and came back. And I was like, the ego was like, okay, you see these other guys you helped start these like hot and cold things. They're taking off. The space is popping. It was like, get investors, sell it or close it down.
Yeah.
tried to sell it. Talked to a few like agents that sold businesses. Like, yeah, 2 years after COVID, no one's gonna pay nothing for this.
Yeah.
They're not gonna buy your vision and try to resurface it out of the ashes. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, the whole time in the beginning, I was like, I wanted partners to come in. And I know there was a lot of fear of me being successful by myself. So I always wanted to have a partner to kind of lift me up, be a protection, all this fear of failure type wound and rejection and being alone, all these things from childhood that I later learned were kind of like these micro driving forces in my life. And I attracted these beautiful investors, like the two different groups of guys that like had lots of money, loved the space, I've done well already, and they're both coming, making offers. I'm like, okay, we're going to scale this. We're going to, 5 locations, 10, 100 locations. And right when it came down to it, the 11th hour, I was there. We had pulled out the equipment. I'd do a renovation. Just something in my heart was like, Gio, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. I know you've mentally figured out how to solve this problem, and it could work, but you're also going to attach yourself to this and have to answer to this team that's believing in you. And this is, you have to eat, breathe, sleep that. Is that what you really want? And I sat with it and I was like, no, I don't want this. It's not aligned with what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And so I did the hardest thing was not only just shut down the business, but tell my staff it's going to shut down, tell the investors, call the landlord, tell the bank, I'm not paying this bank loan. What happens now? Like all these fears, but what would actually happen if I did this? And I chose it because I knew I had to. And what I was afraid of, actually, all the conversations, they went way better than I did because I showed up with integrity. So how do we solve this problem? How do I come to terms? So anyone that had credits in the studio, I found other studios that wanted a new business and they honored some of the credits. Some people just gave refunds. I just made sure I dealt with everything I could in integrity. And it was the best decision I ever made because the other businesses that needed my focus and my energy that were ready to really grow and expand where I was meant to be, now I see that happening, So that's a very long-winded answer to how I got into breath work. But, that's kind of where we are right now. It's like, just really dialing in on how I can serve in the best way, which is not like find the best marketing team or stuff like that. It was like really just focusing on what am I creating? What's the intention behind it? How does it really help people? And how do I make sure I serve them in the best way?
So I'm super new to breathwork. I've been to Rythmia 3 times and got to experience it there. I know the very first time I went, that was my first breathwork experience, and it was mind blowing to me. I was, and I talked to Kevin about this earlier. I did have that kind of out of body experience. I did go through all these emotions that I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm crying, and it's totally, as long as you're following along with the instructions, you can get into these altered conscious states. For somebody who's never done breath work, how do you explain to them what the experience is and what is the experience? What are you connecting with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I remember again, Terrence McKenna said it best, and I think this applies to ayahuasca and any other mind altering states. It's or maybe said it about death. I can't remember, but the basis of it was whatever you think it is, it's not that. Whatever you're managing the experience in your mind can come up with, it's not that, because it's something that really has to be experienced to understand and put words to it. So when people ask me what that's like, it's like, well, you can read about it in a book and you can read people's explanations. And this is what actually pushed me to do ayahuasca the first time, was I was watching DMT, the spirit molecule. Mm-hmm. And I could see the look in their eyes explain their experience. And I could tell, I can feel something about what they're saying, but I know words are not doing justice. And if I want to understand this, I need to experience it.
Yeah.
But what I would say is it's in the breath work, so the rhythmic breathing, it shuts off a part of your brain called the default mode network, or changes the activity there. Okay. That's the part of the brain where the ego resides, where all of your protectors are, the walls you put up, the beliefs you hold, the things that have happened to you when you're a kid. You put these programs in to protect you. That this was uncomfortable or unsafe, to make sure it never happens again. You have all these things in there. It's okay, avoid that. Don't go there. Fight over here. Like these things that become subconscious. And the breath work, similar to psychedelics, shuts that off. It allows you to go deeper into the subconscious mind. So that's where it starts. And then every single person is a different experience, and every single time you do it can be a different experience. So to tell someone what it's going to be like is hard, but it's probably something that they've never experienced before. So sometimes you process emotions that you've been holding on to. Sometimes you start crying or laughing, or you don't even know what it is. And our bodies, what we do as humans, most of us is we bottle things up. You know, a lot of men are told, you know, don't show fear, don't show emotion, don't show weakness. So, you know, hold it in, you know, and also like for women too, like we hold so many of these things that when we start breathing, it's a way for us to kind of release that, you know, that energetic imprint or whatever you want to call it in our body. Also, we go into subconscious mind, we can see different things, memories can come up. For some people, the breathwork experience is like their mind just shuts off and they feel the stillness they never felt before. For them, that's like a miracle. You know, for someone who's never shut off their mind, like a quiet mind's like, whoa, that's possible. But also some people theorize that there's DMT released in the brain, you know, during breathwork. It hasn't been scientifically proven. 100%, I'd say. There's some papers out there that kind of talk about it. And I could be wrong. So if you listen to this and you found them, please email it to me. But what's happening when we're breathing is biochemically, I guess, is we're expelling carbon dioxide. And every time you're breathing, it's like a controlled hyperventilation. You're expelling CO2. Carbon dioxide is actually an important molecule that will deliver the oxygen molecules from the hemoglobin, the red blood cells, to your organs, to your tissues, to the cells in your body. So if you're expelling all this CO2, what happens is, and some breathwork facilitators explain this wrong, is like you're oxygenating your entire body. Your blood becomes oxygen rich, but the rest of your body is starved of oxygen a little bit because there's not enough CO2 to go there. So what I think happens is, you know, oxygen levels in the brain kind of drop a little bit and you kind of have this kind of like low oxygen kind of experience where you can hallucinate, but also the body might think it's dying. And in near-death experience, a lot of these kind of theories stay. It's like, you know, DMT is at birth and at death and maybe a few other times, but that's what the spirit molecule kind of talks about. And it makes sense that during near-death experience, your life flashes before your eyes, release a little bit of DMT, and you can have these visions, or you can have these insights, these realizations. And I think that breathwork is kind of creating that environment. Now it's very safe because if the oxygen level dropped low enough, you pass out and your body would just start breathing automatically. That's why you should never do breathwork in water. You know, it's very dangerous. Breath holds, breathing. But it creates this experience that can be euphoric, that can be super creative, that can really help process emotions. And we've seen some of the most incredible transformations in people that adopt breathwork into daily practice, or even on these one-offs sometimes. Like one breathwork session, we've heard like just changed people's lives. Like people say, I've got more than one breathwork session than I've done in like years of therapy, or even more than plant medicine. You know, we've heard stuff like that and crazy stories of healing, transformation. Because for me, like I'm a strong believer of like most of the body's ailments is tied to some emotional wound or trauma that then gets manifested in the real world. And our soul is kind of like speaking to us, and it whispers. And if you don't listen, it starts, you know, talking a little bit louder, and eventually starts screaming. And, you know, if we can heal at that emotional or even spiritual level, create a chain reaction. And we've had people that have, you know, and this is not to say that this is going to be true for everyone, or, you know, I can promise anything, but this is just what people have shared. Like one guy healed an autoimmune issue in one breathwork session. You know, he had a memory of going back to him as a child where he had locked himself in a cage because he was scared, and he grew up in the Mormon religion, which was very fear-based, and everything you do is like you're going to hell and you're a sinner, and you end up running away from home at one point in his life. And he went in and just connected with his inner child and told him it was okay, it was safe to come out. As soon as he took him out and embraced him and actually felt that was true, he felt all this weight lift off his abdomen area. You know, because a lot of digestive issues, I think, come from some sort of emotional issue. And a couple months later, I'm doing a retreat up in Alaska, and he shows up and he's got like a case of 6-pack of beer and a pizza. And he's like, "Hey, Gio, yeah, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Yeah, I can drink beer and eat pizza now." I'm like, "Yeah, so what is that?" Why are you telling me that? I'd forgotten that he shared that experience with me when we were in Peru. He's like, "Yeah, ever since that day, like my whole digestive system has changed." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." Because again, like a lot of people say things after an experience, like ayahuasca or whatever. They've had this vision. They're going to be the next president of the United States, or they're going to be, you know, like
win the Powerball. Damn it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell them, it's like, okay, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just like a metaphor or symbolism to make you feel a certain way, to maybe challenge yourself or whatever. And it's not always like literal, like you have a vision, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Both for positive and negative. Like some people say like, "Oh, I saw my child die." I was like, "How'd that make you feel?" "Oh, I was scared. I wanted to," okay, like, how do you communicate to them right now? When was the last time you told them you loved them? When was the last time you spent time with them? Like, will this change the way you interact with them now? It's okay. Maybe they're not going to die. This is a message like, hey, if they were to die today, you'd probably be upset and wish you had more time with them. Spend it now. Yeah. Right. So like the visions that we get in these experiences are not always literal, but they are intended to create a change within us, and that's what breathwork can do on a macro level. And sometimes, Tim, it's like that small thing, which is like, what's that one little thing I got to do? It's like, aha, it's so simple. And that little thing that they do is that next step that's needed to get that transformation that they really want. But if they don't do that first step, they can't get, to their ultimate goal.
Yeah, I've barely done a breath work, and I don't know if it's just I'm lazy, but it seems like it's a lot of work to sit there and, get into that state, and you got to take time and be intentional about it. But, I do have some experiences on the ayahuasca side of physical healing. My friend Amanda just came back from there, and she's had like this sweating disorder for her entire life. And she went there, and literally it's been months she's been back, and it's gone. And it's a physical disease disease that she has. And it hasn't come back in months and months. And she thinks she's healed of it, and I believe it because I've known her for a long time. Every time you touch her hands, it's sweaty, and now it's wild. What do you? I don't know. I like to get into spirituality and consciousness and stuff. Like what? Obviously, in plant medicine, you're connecting with that higher power. What is kind of your thought on what are we connecting with? Are we connecting with our higher selves? Is it God, entities, all of the above? Like, what's kind of your theory on plant medicine? What is it doing to you?
Yeah, I guess the best way I would explain it is like all of these things are the same. Mm-hmm. You're connecting with the creator, which is the source of life, right? And a lot of the times the pathway there is to remove the blockages that are holding us back from connecting with it. So meditation can do that, breathwork can do that, fasting can do that, plant medicine can do that. It's like removing the blockages, and a lot of religions talk about like Ganesha, removing the blockages, because we create these blockages, these obstructions based on our experiences in life, and it disconnects us. So we become out of harmony, dis-ease, right? So a lot of these things are helping us to remove those, to see the truth and connect with that vibration that is nature, that is like in harmony, perfect and life-giving. So, some people might want to call it God or whatever you want. It's those are just words for when you kind of touch that experience, you can feel like, oh, like this is true. So when I get my mind out of it, and this is what even the Buddhists talk about. Like the mind is a problem. When you remove all your attachments, you can become enlightened. And that's you just being in that like God state all the time, where you're kind of like nothing can really bother you, right? That's like this like ultimate like expression of being present all the time. And in the Tao, they talk about doing without doing, like it's when you just be and you don't have to think about it, and you just become yourself, and I think Ram Dass was like made a documentary about becoming nobody, where you detach from everything so much, where you just be yourself and you become like the greatest teacher or artist or whatever it is. So it's the mind that gets in the way. And you see things, and it's like plant medicine can be weird. And is it God? Is it the shaman? Is it the jungle? But I think if God created all of this stuff, there are all kind of pathways to reconnect with that. Even the worst stuff, the hard things, the darkness, is part of a transformational process that I think we came here to undergo. We came into this world of duality that has both. It has the most beautiful things and the most scary, awful things that exist all at the same time for us to kind of navigate through, to learn and to grow. So I think they all are connecting with God in some way, shape, or form, I use that word lightly because it's more of like a frequency than like an actual thing. Like there's this man in the sky or something like that. It's that which is in each and every one of us that makes life work,
Yeah, it's wild. And, I've only done it like 13 times, so I'm still new to the game, but I've had some wild experiences, and, I feel like it is, everything's kind of energy and but we are connecting with a higher power and ourselves. I kind of think it's all of the above, and at the top of it is, the creator, and what that exactly is, we don't really understand, and nobody does, but I know that when I've put myself into those situations with breath work or with ayahuasca, it's been hard, but it's also been extremely beneficial, like the healing and the insight you get, even, I don't want to say even with breath work, because that is just as powerful as some of the experiences I had with plant medicine, even more so visually. And so
it's funny incredible. Because you say breath work's hard, but it's definitely not as hard as doing ayahuasca.
Well, no.
It's just committing to yourself, and like everyone I talk to, it's doing breath work is hard, but every time I finish, I remember why I went through that work to get it. And that's usually life, nothing is really just easy or handed to you. If you really want to have that breakthrough, it's you usually got to work for it. Usually you got to step into the fear, to discomfort outside your comfort zone. And I think, again, Terence McKenna says something along the lines of nature rewards courage. When you step up, show up, do the work, you get rewarded. And in plant medicine, that's true for me too. When something hard is coming, and the first few trips around that I would do, I'd be scared. I'd try to avoid it, and it just chases you around all night. When you're okay, let's see what's on the other side of this. Let me just feel it, see it, go into it, however uncomfortable it's going to be, do your worst. And once you break through that, usually the other side, you see the most beauty and the most beautiful insights. And the gift for you is learning about yourself and about opening your perspective and being able to take something back that will not only impact your life, but the life of everyone around you. That's what all this work is. As you improve yourself, you can really bring that back into your real actual life and share that with others. And I think that's the whole point of it, is that ability to share, good vibes and positivity and change with people that you love and care about.
I mean, you've been doing this for a while now, but people around you, my friend circle, I've been slowly drawing people in, this person's coming and they're watching, and people are signing up and going to Rythmia or doing breath work, stuff like that. But do you try to encourage people to do this work, or do you just lead by example and people join you?
Well, initially, the impulse is oh, I got to share this with everyone, whether it was breath work or plant medicine or even so many other things that I'd stumbled upon. And I realized one, not everyone's ready for it. And two, you can't force the horse to go to water, or I don't know what the saying is, bring him to water, you can't make him drink type thing.
Yeah.
So in the beginning I was trying, and then I made the documentary, and then I was you know what? I'm just going to speak my truth, not be afraid to share about what it is, but I'm not going to try to convince anyone. When they're ready, I'll be here to hold their hand and share whatever I can that I know from my own experience. But I think sometimes just expressing it, just the way, people express it that I heard watching videos or listen to podcasts, I felt something. And I tell people, it's look, if you feel a curiosity, follow it. Doesn't mean you have to come do my breath work or come to plant medicine where I do. It's follow your intuition, because that intuition is there for a reason. That gut instinct, it's the system that's built within you, and it's trying to guide you. And the more you can tap into that, the more beautiful and mysterious your life will get. Following intuition, taking the path less taken, even though everyone's going right, something's pulling you to go left. It's okay, maybe there's something there for me. And getting outside that comfort zone. And that's where real life is happening. All the growth is happening. It's outside your comfort zone. And so, in order to hear the intuition though, you got to clear some of the noise, right? Because if you grew up on this planet, I don't care where you were born, what you've done, what your parents did, how much money you had, there's always noise for everybody. It comes in different shapes and forms, but that internal noise is I've seen, some of the richest people in the world commit suicide, and I've seen, dirt poor people be happy with a smile on their face with nothing. Everyone has their problems and their issues that come in their own specific way for them based on the journey they're on in this lifetime. But if you want to listen to that intuition and see synchronicity, you got to clear the noise, which is like work on yourself, eating healthier, doing breath work or meditation, going to the gym. Like if we're stuck in social media all the time, regurgitating our problems and our worries and our fears and having brain fog and all these things, it's very hard to kind of hear your intuition and to kind of like have that space to create in life. But when we start having some discipline to like know that, okay, like I'm building a foundation, trying to like, change my vibration. I want to really evolve. And you choose that, I choose to create a change or to evolve. Like that's all you got to make the decision. And even if it's 1 minute a day to start, it's going to start leading you more into that direction. And you're going to start seeing things and the people are going to come into your life. Like that saying, the student is ready, the teacher appears when the student is ready or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's so true, but you have to make that choice yourself. I'm ready to learn. I want to find a teacher. I want to change my life, and setting that intention, just doing that one little thing you can each day, even if it's 2 minutes of breath work, you'll build momentum and things will change.
I was going to ask that, like, what's the minimum? 2 minutes. That sounds great. I can do that. I could do 5 even.
5 breaths a day. If you just stop yourself and just take 5 breaths, start there. Like just do something, that moment of conscious kind of pause, setting intention, be grateful for something and take a few slow, relaxed breaths. That's it.
Yeah.
I would recommend 10 or 15 minutes every day to start your day of breath work. It's like a really good number. That's going to clear your mind, allow you to kind of like change your mood, feel happier, more energized and clear. But if you got 5 breaths, like take 5 very conscious breaths, focus on one thing you're grateful for, and just set an intention for the day, how you want to show up.
My first experience coming back, I was doing breath work for a few weeks, like every morning, and get done with that, jump in the cold plunge, like just you feel so good, and then it's easy to get off track. But I know there's so many people out there who are wanting to make improvements in their life. And like you said, you don't have to go all in, you can do 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and just start making those little changes. I'm trying to cut out the toxic things in my life, like alcohol being one of them. I love a margarita, dude. It's my jam. But, it takes me out of that positive mind frame the next day, and you feel like crap and you don't want to do the workouts and stuff like that when you're not putting good things into your body. And so we all know what we need to do. It's just stepping up to the plate and doing it. And I love, you have an app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so people can jump on there and.
Yeah, we got an app. It's got some free tracks on there. There's a membership too that has like a whole bunch of tracks. And I just tell people, look, if you do breathwork for 30 days in a row, you're going to be a different person in 30 days. Okay, that's it. If you can just put 10 minutes aside a day for 30 days, it will create a momentum shift in your life, and can spark, whatever you're at right now, whether you're right on a journey, accelerate it, whether you're feeling kind of stuck, break you out of that. But even if you just do more than you're doing right now, it's good. Do
you recommend it like with ear pods laying on the floor or on your bed, or how do you recommend?
Whatever's easiest for you, whatever's comfortable. If you want to breathe on the subway to work and you can put some ear pods in and not worried about people looking at you, you can hold a newspaper up and just breathe so no one sees you for shy. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, I always recommend, like, I think the best way is just laying down with good speaker ear pods, but it doesn't really matter as long as you do it. You're going to feel it. Follow your intuition. If you feel better doing it there, like, here's the thing. It's like, what people need to learn is how to trust themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, teachers are great, but anyone that tells you like they know everything and this is exactly what you got to do, run the other way. I think that's another Ram Dass quote. It's like, okay, like follow my intuition. Does this work for me? Discipline is good for, a couple of weeks until we start build a foundation, then feel good to modify, how do I adapt to this? Listen to yourself, feel into your body. Sometimes maybe working out every day for 2 hours is too much.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like every other day. So allow yourself to listen to yourself, and trust that, then just make sure you're not trying to make excuses like, oh, I'm too tired today, I gotta rest. And that becomes every day your new thing,
Yeah. I just started I'm going to start trail running again with my buddy, just trying to do some positive stuff. And freaking third time out, I rolled my ankle yesterday. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, it's always something, but you can't let that kind of stuff get in your way. Like, okay, there's other things I can do in the meantime, let it heal and get back on the trail and keep going for it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you, what's like a typical Rythmia experience for you? You go down there and you instruct. How long are you generally down there for?
Yeah, I usually go down a couple of days early. I was living in Costa Rica for a couple of years. I got some friends just not too far from Rythmia. But once I get there, I'm usually leading breathwork on Sunday night. And then I do a couple classes there. So we do like a big ice bath on the Monday to prep everyone for that Monday night ceremony. I think the ice bath just cools off everyone's nerves a little bit and gets them in a nice space. And I usually drink every night there, you know, because like part of the reason I go there is one, I love teaching and connect with people, but I learned so much about myself from drinking the medicine. You know, it's been one of my greatest teachers, like hands down. And it's funny because like, you know, so many times I was like, oh man, I wish I had more mentors in my life. I wish I had thinking like some business mogul or something, and I do have some mentors, but like my greatest mentor has been the medicine. Like every time I go there, it like kicks my ass, but also lifts me up in a beautiful way and sets me back on my course. Like, okay, I'll see you in a few months, you know, like do your thing now, do the real work, go back and make the changes, you know, like, and that's it. It's like a self-study. So it's not like just going to the medicine or going to the breath work or to whatever. It's like, what are the insights that I take away that I can now make a change in my life so that I can make my life better?
Yeah.
And even if your life is great right now, you know, people say, yeah, things are pretty good. Yeah, okay. You don't have to do plant medicine or breath work or anything, but it can always be better. You know, there's always more, and better doesn't mean more money. Maybe it means less stress, more joy, you know, better connections, deeper relationships. And this is what the plant medicine has showed me, because I've done over 100 ceremonies. I've lost count, you know, how many I've done. You know, in the beginning, it was a lot of like, yeah, like hard work and memories that I regretted or things that happened to me. After that, I was like these more subtle layers of like teaching me really about integrity and giving me examples of my life, like how to show up better and how to be a better dad or a leader or to resolve conflict within myself and externally. Like all these amazing lessons that the medicine was able to show me in a way that I could really kind of understand it. And the funny thing is, so many times, like I'd be lying there on the mat and like the answer is so simple. You know, it's like that meme that I've seen 100 times or that book quote that I read 500 times. But like the way it just like presents it that I can really embody and understand, it's like, oh, that's what it really means. You know, like now I get it. Now it makes sense, you know?
Most of the answers are not like that deep. It's like the obvious answer. It comes to you and you're like, oh, it's been in front of my face the whole time.
Simple and clear. And that's it. Now you just got to go and live it. Now you got to be aware, you know,
yeah.
when you can apply it.
I've had people be like, because I've gone down there 3 times, you know, and it's like, why do you keep going back? And it's like,
I get the same question.
Yeah.
Like,
did it not work for you?
You must be really messed up, man. You got to keep going back. And like, well, you know, like, and I think there's this kind of, I don't even know what the right word for it is. Maybe a misconception that all this work is about like healing trauma. Mm-hmm. And like, you have to go in and find everything and fix it and go into the pain, the hurt and blah, 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 blah. Just like life, that's part of it. But part of it is also growth, expansion, exploration, mm-hmm. curiosity, creativity. You know, like there's that whole side to it. It doesn't always have to be about, you know, finding more things to heal and beating yourself up about, okay, what's this next thing that, you know, it's like, yeah, that stuff might come up, but it's all about going back into alignment, which is a beautiful vibration, which is like nature and being at peace and not being attached, getting out of your head and all those kind of things. So it's a beautiful reminder. And the other thing too is like, you go back because life is always throwing shit at you. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's always more stuff that's happening in the world, yourself, that again creates that noise in your mind. And you go back there and it's like this like reset button. It's like, okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready.
Definite detox, man. That was kind of, I've told people that's kind of been my answer. It's like, yeah, all that stuff that I went there for on the first time, I dealt with that stuff and I did deal with it. And it's that stuff, the PTSD, the anxiety, depression, all the crap I couldn't forgive myself for, you know, I dealt with it, but life does still happen and new things pop up and, you know, you keep learning and expanding and dealing with the latest greatest problem, but you can deal with it, and it gives you the tools to deal with things. And every time I've done it, I've gotten better at just being like, okay, this isn't that big of a deal. We can move on, take the lesson and move on from it, and just don't mess up next time,
Exactly.
But we're gonna keep messing up, man. We're human.
And there's so many layers to things. Like I've had like things come up, and I've healed an aspect of it, right? But we live a multidimensional life, and like one of the things I regretted or a mistake I made, like one ceremony showed me like what I learned from it, and almost like justifying it. And then, X amount of ceremonies later, I was ready to go back and then look at the emotional side of it, like how it impacted me and how I was holding on to that still. Although mentally I was like, okay, I can see how this was good. I can see how it made me stronger, and I can see how it did this. And I was kind of like still like ignoring my emotional body. And it was like, okay, now you can go in and really feel the pain that it caused you, and allow yourself to say sorry to yourself and to be compassionate, look at the emotional side of this experience now. Or maybe there's a spiritual lesson. And sometimes like the same experience, or maybe there's a different belief that I built out of that. And one time was just, working on my fear of failure. And the next time it was like, fear of being rejected, or of not being a good person, or, I'm not enough. And there's so many different layers to certain things that, when you're ready, then they always say, you get what you need, not what you want. It's like, okay, like now we're gonna go do some work over here. And this is where this shows up in your life because of that one moment that we went back, and we did a lot of healing the first time.
Yeah.
But I think like you can do this kind of work for lifetimes and still learn more about yourself, right? And that's the beauty of it. There's always more to explore and to expand.
Yeah, it's the human experience. That's what I was told as I was screaming at the grass. What's the point of all this? Oh, you're just having the human experience. It's fine. You're like, oh, yeah, I guess I am. It's a wild experience for sure. Man, if people are interested in breath work and want to learn more about your program, and you train people to become facilitators, which is incredible. And my wife let me know on the way out here that she's going to be doing it and signing up.
Awesome.
I know my sister's also in wanting to do it, Bonnie, better. So they'll be signing up with you. But how do people get a hold of you and your program, and what's kind of the idea behind your program and getting people certified?
Yeah. So to connect with me, you can. I'm on Instagram most actively at Elemental Geo. I have a YouTube channel too. I'm just posting some stuff more regularly on there. Just also Elemental Geo, I think. Easiest way is the website, elementalrhythm.com. You can probably toss that in the show notes there. And there's different pathways. You just want to use breathwork for yourself. There's an app there and some courses you can take. If you learn how to be a facilitator, we teach people how to lead these experiences for others, and usually it's like you feel a bit of a call. Like some people are already in the healing space or wellness, and they want to add breath work because they want to help their clients go deeper. We get a lot of coaches that realize like mindset work alone is not enough for most people. They gotta get beyond that conscious mind that's trying to control everything, and it's really the subconscious that's controlling it. And some people just want to make a career change. They want to have more fulfillment, and they want to build community, and breathwork is a beautiful way to do that. I've made so many friends and connections through facilitating breathwork that it's probably one of the greatest profits that I've made from jumping here is the people that I've met and the experiences that I've had through breathwork. And it's a transformational journey being a facilitator. Like, it's not just learning a method. Like, we're going to bring you through your own transformation, because, like, that's what makes the best facilitator, someone who's continually evolving and transforming and sharing their wisdom with the people that come to their classes to learn from them. So we teach them how to lead those experiences from start to finish, the music, the guidance, the meditation aspect, like how to hold space. And then we have other programs if you want to coach. We have advanced coaching with breathwork and stuff like that down the road. But if you're feeling the call, you can check out our website, hop on a call with us. We'll talk you through the process and see if it's fit. But guarantee that you become a facilitator, your life will change. That's the common denominator we see is like, if you just show up, do the training, and go out and do breath work in 12 months, like, your life will be different.
I love what you guys are doing, and breath work is an incredible experience. Like I said, it was really my first experience into not hallucinating, but kind of having this traveling journey, you know, and it was powerful stuff. So if somebody is interested in doing ayahuasca or something like that, I would start with breath work, because you're going to get a lot of that, the same kind of insight as you do on a ayahuasca or plant medicine journey. So highly recommend it. And it's a little cheaper than going down to Costa Rica, and you can do it in your own home. And it's a wonderful thing. Man, I love what you're doing, and you've been helping people out, tons of people. And I love the fact that you're down at Rythmia. I don't get paid by Rythmia. I've never made a dime, you know, I'm not sponsored by them, but they changed my life. And, you know, I feel like I owe it to share my experience with people, and I want to keep them open. So keep spreading the word and get people down there. You know, it's
nice.
It's incredible, man. Gio, I appreciate you taking time to share a little bit of your experience and how you're helping people. And I appreciate all the work that you've done down at Rythmia too. It's amazing. So thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. It's been great to connect, and yeah, you're doing great work too, man. Just sharing is like the best way, like storytelling, sharing experiences, and, you know, sending people down there. You know, you're going to be not only just changing their lives, but again, like they're bringing that back, you know, to their friends, their family, their community, and it's beautiful what you're doing. So thank you for sharing and being a voice. And hopefully, if you're listening and you feel something, it's like just take that first step in that direction. You know, maybe it's watching a YouTube video, maybe it's doing a Google search, maybe it's trying to breath work. But like, if you're feeling it, you know, if you listen to this podcast, you know, you probably listen to this podcast for a reason. You know, like listen to that voice inside of you, and it'll lead you to some incredible places. So
it absolutely will. Yeah, 100%, man. Gio, thank you much. Everybody, thank you for listening. Please share this if you found value in it. I appreciate you all. Thanks.
Thank you.